Hey everybody, you're watching Cole the Corn Star. yeah, voice crack. Good morning everybody, welcome to the farm. Today we have a ton of things to do. First up, we are going to have a bunch of house construction. We are currently in the middle of framing up the master suite. We have some walls to build over here in this room, which is going to be the closet and the bathroom. And once we get done with these, then we are going to be working our way over to the exterior walls, and we're gonna start building the rest of the outside. And then going into the house down in the basement, we are going to be doing some work down here today as well. When we poured the basement floor a couple months ago, we didn't exactly do a perfect job smoothing out all of our edges, and we have a couple areas where we have some high spots. So here in a little bit, we are going to have some guys come with a big concrete grinder, and they are going to try to smooth out these edges for us. That way they're nice and smooth, just like this. And then while they are here, they're also going to grind some of the high areas that we have in the floor, so that way we can get rid of the hump and then have a nice flat floor. And then last but not least, we are starting corn harvest today. So at this time, this is my plan of attack for today. I'm going to help my dad, Cooper, and Zach get the combine set up and get running. We are going to get started combining the field right behind the house. So since we're right beside the Bend site, I'm hoping that once we get things set up and going, those three guys can keep things moving and keep the combine moving back and forth. And then once we get to that point, I plan on going over to the house and work on the construction side of things. And then if the concrete guys need anything, which they really shouldn't, then I will be there to be able to assist them. So that's the plan at this moment. Plans are subject to change. We'll see how this goes. All right, Cooper, before we pull into the field, what is your preseason prediction on everything? How are things gonna go, and what are yields gonna be looking like?
Well, I hope everything goes smooth. Everyone hopes that. I think our corn that didn't die early, that we got double pass fungicide on, I think we're gonna see some good numbers there. I think the stuff that died early, I don't think it's gonna do very good. But I'm excited about this corn head. I'm excited to use a head that seems to be built good, hooks up nice. So I'm excited about that, and we'll just hope for a smooth harvest.
All right, here we go. As we're getting ready to pull our combine into the field, we are going to be using our new Calmer corn head this year. And before we start combining any corn, let's go over some of the features with the new Calmer corn head with the inventor of the Calmer corn head himself, Marion Calmer. All right, Marion, we are currently here in your booth that demonstrates all of the stuff that your Calmer corn head has to offer. So we're gonna let you take this away because you know much more about what you're talking about than I do.
Well, they always say that necessity is the mother of invention, and back in the 90s I was having trouble growing corn stalks faster than they would decompose, so we developed what's now called the Calmer BT chopper. And the stalk roll is the heart and soul of anybody's corn head, and if you get this part of it right, the rest of it's kind of a walk in the park. So we start right here at the beginning. Here's the spirals that are going to feed that stalk on up into the fluted chamber. And in this scenario right here, we've got a stalk in so that you can see it. But it kind of works like the threads on a bolt or the threads on a wood screw. And we're going to walk that stalk right up in there nice and smooth. We've got long flutes. They just keep getting a little shorter and a little shorter, and still moves in real easy. And then once we're into the chamber or into the window, then we're going to come with the two longest flutes, and then we grab the stalk and then we can pull it down. So we get 100% traction very first time we touch the stalk.
So once the stalk actually gets through this spiral area, then we get up into what Marion calls the flutes, and that's these teeth looking thing. And to help demonstrate what the Calmer BT chopper does different, they have a little setup right here. So on the right, we would have just a standard corn head stalk roll, and then on the left, we have the Calmer BT choppers.
So in this scenario here, it's just not much being done to the corn stalk. It's not going to decompose. It's going to give me all sorts of problems and planting time and everything else. So this is our 10 blades, overlap with 10 more blades. They're razor sharp. And if you watch here real close, you can see it'll take this nice long stalk and turn it into confetti. Here we go. Now I got something I can work with. I got something that I can feed the little animals that are in the soil, the earthworms, the microbes, the bacteria, the funguses. And the important part is opening up so that we get this pith exposed, and that's the funguses will start right in, and by spring this will decompose. It's plant food. It goes right back into the soil. But the only thing that Cole, that you're going to see next spring is this outer rind or the bark, and that's about all that'll be left in the soil out there. Everything else will be back as being recycled and become organic matter.
And just for comparison, this is the Calmer BT chopper, turns it into confetti, and then this would be more of a standard stock roll. Nice big chunks. Look at that difference. That's huge. Now that we got the stock chopped up, that is just half of the equation. We still have to get the ear that we've spent all year trying to grow up and into the machine. And when we get it up into the machine, we want to try to lose as few of the kernels as possible. This is where these things, AKA the Calmer stripper plates, come into play.
So now we've gone past the stalk rolls. Now we need the stripper plates, because as this plant's coming downward, we have to have something that stops and retains that ear of corn, because we want to keep this corn going up to the machine to be thrashed, but we want to continue taking all of the fodder and the stalk on down to the ground. So one of the things with our stripper plates is that we have a little bevel, and so that helps to displace that energy a little better around here. But also, if we can grab the ear shank, and this is the part of the corn stalk that connects the cob over to the node, and if we grab this ear shank, when we pull downward, not only will we separate the ear, but we're going to take the husk right with it. So what we want to do then is just take these yellow ears and move them on up to the combine, and then that's where they'll get thrashed, where we'll rub the yellow kernels off, and we'll have just the red cob left. The other feature of our stripper plates here is that if you notice, the bottom of the ear is rounded, so we make a rounded surface for it. And now we can displace that energy so that it doesn't go just on one kernel. It maybe goes on 6 kernels on this side, 6 on that. And that helps to stop butt shelling. And butt shelling is when the ear of corn comes down and it breaks those kernels loose before we get them to the combine. So this helps push those kernels back on, keep them retained on that red cob, and we send it on up into the machine. Also now, once we're getting the ears separated, we have to transport them up into the combine, and we have sprockets, we have a gathering chain, and they're what's going to propel or create the propulsion that's going to take those ears on up into the conveyor and eventually on up into the combine.
And just for a comparison, see how these deck plates kind of cradle this ear with that little bevel? Well, this would be a standard one, which is just straight. So there's no cradling there whatsoever. You just smoke a kernel on it and then boom, now we have butt shelling.
So now that we've described the parts that are inside of the corn head, now we're going to actually show you it all put together. It's got the plastic snouts, and we're going to drive through the field so that it lines up with these stalks and plants, and it's going to come right here into the row unit, and then that stalk roll, like we showed earlier, is going to grab it and pull it downward, and then the stripper plates are going to separate this ear from the corn stalk, and then what we're going to have left are ears. Some will have husks, some will be clean, and then these little lugs right here are going to convey these ears on up into this auger, into that tray, and then it's going to move them on down to the center, and then it'll take them right up into the combine, and that's what's going to rub the yellow kernels away from the red cob.
All right, check this out. This is my favorite part. Keep a close eye on the difference. We have 2 corn stalks, the exact same height. Here we go. Look at that. This is actually the main reason why we are going with the Calmer corn head. In the past, the residue in our fields looked a lot like this. We have a ton of fertilizer trapped inside of these stalks that we have very little access to when we have whole chunks like this, because it's really hard for bacteria and bugs and everything else to be able to get in there and break that down. However, with the Calmer BT choppers, when we turn things into confetti like this, everything gets nice and exposed, so that way this can start breaking down almost immediately, where this takes some time. On our farm, we are going to be running a fully built Calmer corn head. However, if you would like to upgrade your corn head, you do not have to buy an entirely new corn head. You can simply purchase a Calmer corn head upgrade kit. You can get the Calmer BT choppers, and you can get their deck plates. If you are interested, this is Calmer corn head's phone number, and this is their website. Their website is also in the description below. Just give them a call, tell them what corn head you have, and they'll get you lined up with pricing on stuff. They're all super nice people. I've had a really good experience with every single person from Calmer corn heads that I have talked to. They're extremely friendly people. We've gone about 200 feet into the field. We are now doing a behind the combine inspection to see how things are looking. Basically, we're trying to make sure we're not throwing corn out the back of the combine. So the first thing that we're gonna look at is our cobs. We have a white cob on this hybrid. We don't usually like white cobs because they get rubbery. Right now we have them in little pieces. I will take a little pieced rubbery cob over a whole pieced rubbery cob that still has kernels of corn still stuck on it. So really what we're looking for are no kernels on the cobs, which we are seeing right now. If these were not white cobs, I'd say let's open things up a little bit, because ideally we want to have a whole cob. Right now we have things cinched down tight to break these into little pieces, but these white cobs can cause a problem. So with this, I'm okay with this and a white cob. The next thing I'm looking at is loss from the head. So then we'll know if we need to tighten up our deck plates a little bit or not. So I'm right behind the head right now. Any corn that we see on the ground here is coming from the head, not from the combine. That's why we are up here. So we'll dig this back, and oh my goodness, look at the confetti. Look at it. Look at these little baby bits of stalk. That is awesome. The Calmer choppers are doing excellent. Oh my goodness, look at that. Just blowing everything wide open. Okay, back to looking for corn. We are getting a little bit of header loss. Now, header loss is inevitable. You're always going to have it. It's just a matter of how much, and if you get it, can you adjust it to make it littler? So right here we have a kernel. We have a kernel right here. There's a kernel right there, and we have one right there and there. So we definitely have a little bit more head loss than I would like. We have not adjusted the speed of our corn head yet, so we may also have it going too fast. If it's going too fast, it sucks the ears down really quickly, and then it shatters them on the deck plates. So we'll probably adjust our deck plates together a little bit, and then we'll also try to slow our head down a little bit. And then by doing those two things, that should help minimize this. And the moisture corn that we are in right now, I don't think that we should really be experiencing a whole lot of header loss. So I think we can make some adjustments on this. Next up, I'm going to go behind the combine. So we already saw what we had for header loss. Now we can see what the machine is adding on top of it. So anything extra that we saw versus the header loss is coming from the machine. And yeah, there's a lot of corn on the ground right here. A lot of corn. So I don't know what's going on. We need to do some investigating, because yeah, that's bad. Then looking up in our grain tag, we have a fairly clean sample. I'm seeing some cobs in here, so that says we're a little tight with stuff. And doing the hand sample, it looks like we have some cracked grain, so I think that we're maybe going a little fast with our rotor as well. Probably a good thing we stopped. I guess we also didn't have a trap door closed. Seems like that happens about every year. I find that if you come into the first day of harvest with the expectation of getting almost nothing done, it makes the day go a lot better, because then you don't feel as bad about having the combine sit so much. Just because when you're getting set up for the year, number one, you're remembering how to run everything. Number two, you're getting all the cobwebs, all the rust off of everything. And then number three, you're coming into a completely different crop. So the settings this year are completely different than they were last year. First dump of the year. Yeah, our first sample didn't look the best, but we'll fix that. Here we go. We're getting into the corn with the broken top. So this corn has a really weak stalk. Let's take a look at header loss. Yeah, we still got quite a bit up here. But we also have some really small kernels that died about 2 weeks early, so I have a feeling that might just be contributing to it as well. On the corn that has the stalks that are breaking, we have a red cob in this stuff. So as we can see, these ones are red instead of white. And these ones just tend to be more solid. They don't get rubbery like the white ones. So really, this is exactly what we want to see. A whole cob with no corn stuck to it. See what this corn's feeling like? Oh yeah, well, that looks good. That's dry. We're trying to figure out the head settings right now for the speed and the deck plate width. And we kind of have a cool little side-by-side right here. On the right side, we slowed our head down, and as we can see, we got a whole bunch of variability in our stock height. And then over here on the left, we ran our head faster. It does a much better job going faster. And then for our deck plate adjustments, when we grab a stock and we shove it down between the deck plates, we have quite a bit of wiggle room inside of there. So I think we're gonna tighten those up a little bit. Cooper and I were going along and we noticed we had a bunch of corn up here on top of the feeder house, and after doing some investigating, we discovered there's a missing bolt right here and grain is leaking out from there. So the little retainer thing that's supposed to be threaded inside there fell out. So we're gonna pull off this whole cover and then we're gonna put in all new bolts and we should be able to get this sealed down. And then while we are here, we are also going to adjust our transport vanes. On the side of the combine, we have what's called transport vanes on the outside of the rotor. That's these things. They basically direct flow through the rotor. If you put them in a vertical position, it keeps material inside the rotor longer. And if you advance them further, it makes it more aggressive and it kicks stuff through quicker. Right now, they are in a middle aggressive position and we want them in the least aggressive position to keep grain in here as long as possible. So we're gonna undo these 3 bolts right here, and then we're gonna slide them over into that other hole so they're straight up and down. We got our truck bed toolboxes, but in that one, half the tools have not got put back into it yet. So I don't know where they're at. I'm gonna go grab another truck that's got another toolbox. Uh-oh, and looking over there, it is raining. Oh man, where did that come from? We got all the semi-tarp shut. I think Cooper just folded down the combine extension, so we have everything sealed up. Doesn't really matter for the grain that we've harvested. It's just now we're gonna have wet, damp stalks out in the field, so we're probably not gonna be going back to combining for a couple hours. So this was this morning, no rain, then all of a sudden, bam, out of nowhere, that came. It just teleported here. Boop, little blop of rain. It's supposed to be here for about 30 minutes. And then nothing. I guess this makes us not feel so bad about taking the time to fix this stuff. So once again, if you come into the first day of harvest with the expectation of not really getting anything done, it just makes the day go a whole lot smoother. Hey Coop, how you liking adjusting those transport vanes?
I hate it. I love it just as much as last year.
We really didn't get all that much rain. We have a little breeze coming through right now and the sun's supposed to come back out in a little bit, so I wouldn't be surprised if we're running in 2 hours. So we're probably just gonna stop, take an early lunch, and then once we get done with that, we should be going. The problem of running when it's damp right now is the leaves can get wet and then this can plug up the inside of the machine because they stick to everything. So basically, as soon as our leaves get dry enough to not stick to stuff anymore, then we can go. We're not worried about mud right now whatsoever. Probably the top this much of soil is the only thing that's damp. It hardly even sticks to your boots. And then under that is dry. So we're not worried about getting stuck. It's just more or less, we don't want this stuff to plug up inside of our machine because then you just kick pretty much everything out the back and it makes a mess out of everything. Muskrat dog, what are we doing? You look like a muskrat, Ellie. You look like a wet muskrat. Well, we're waiting for things to dry up out in the field. I'm coming over here at the house. It got wet in that little rain that we got because we don't have gutters on the house and all the water that hit the roof came down here. And so right now we're working with some pretty decent puddleature over here. So I'm gonna take a broom and try to push this stuff off so that way hopefully this can start drying here pretty quick, and then later when we get working on this, then we're not working in a bunch of water. I did pretty much everything I could over there. I just tried to push around the puddles to spread them out. So hopefully with the sun coming back out now and a little breeze, it'll be able to dry up here pretty quick. It's been about an hour now. We got a 10-mile-an-hour wind and we got some sun. I think we're gonna try it again with the combine. Okay, here we go. Today is one of those days that's kind of a unique day for us. This is the earliest we have ever combined corn, and this is also the first time that we have ever combined corn before we combined soybeans. This year we got attacked by a fungal disease called southern rust and another disease called tar spot, and it killed a lot of our corn 2 weeks early. And so right now we're running into stock quality issues. So our corn's dry enough. That's why we're out here so early, because we're worried about the plants falling over on the ground. And if that happens, then we could have ears fall on the ground. And once they do that, then we wouldn't be able to harvest them. After doing some adjustments on the new Calmer corn head, getting our deck plates in tighter, as well as fine tuning the speed of the head, look at our head loss now. This looks awesome. I have just about nothing but a kernel there, kernel there. This looks really good. That's about as low as you're gonna get. Nothing there. Oh, found 2 kernels right there, 2 little baby ones. Those are hard to get. But yeah, that looks much, much better. Very impressed. We haven't seen that little of head showing in a long time. Well, I think we could probably tighten down our concaves a little bit. We have some corn stuck to some cobs. See that, Cope? Look at this. This is an old rubber cob. See how far I can bend it without breaking it? Yeah. Rubbery. Makes it really quite difficult to set the combine. Oh, they should snap like that. I don't get it at all. How was this not forecasted like 2 hours ago the last time it rained? This doesn't come out of nowhere. Grain cart! Ooh, good catch. Looking at our sample up here, this is some really nice looking corn. Combine's set good. We don't have a bunch of cracked stuff. It's not all chalky and broken. And really, got a couple white cobs in here, but otherwise, our MOG, our material other than grain, is kept pretty small. Got a couple leaves, couple little stems. That's really not too bad. And there you go. White cob giving us more fits. That thing is broken absolutely tiny. Still has corn stuck to it. We don't have the yield monitor on the combine calibrated yet, so I don't know the exact yield. Just doing some rough math with the scale beside us, I'd say this field so far is probably doing about 220 bushels per acre. Looking at the size of these ears, if we did not die 2 weeks early, I would say this probably would have been north of 250 bushel corn, but it is what it is. We got hit with disease, so we move forward and we learn from it, and then hopefully next year we don't have this happen again. Yeah, look at that. Just broken right over. Nice, weak stalks. Exactly what we don't like to see. Got Zach whipping back. Cooper's full. Here we go. Unload on the go. I just tried talking while outside the combine. I realized that you can't hear me at all because the combine is extremely loud. After going back and forth a little bit more, our patch job earlier looks like it's not holding, so we need to fix that because it's still leaking grain on top of the feeder house. And then we are also pulling in quite a bit of trash right now with these diseased, weak stalks. When the stalk rolls grab it, it seems like it's just breaking it off, and then the whole stalk falls in. So that's why we are pulling in so much trash into the head. So hopefully once we get into some healthier stuff, like the corn that is on the right, we should just be pulling in the ears. That may also help our combine performance a little bit, because right now it seems like we're kicking a little bit more out the back of the combine than we would like. But I think that the fact that we're pulling in so much trash has something to do with that. It's gonna start pouring here in about any second. It actually just started to rain, so we're stopping while we are ahead. And I guess we're gonna be done harvesting today. We got 15.4 acres done. If you're curious as to how the Calmer corn head is working, the BT choppers are turning everything into some nice little pieces of confetti. I'm really liking what I'm seeing here, especially this, where it splits the stalk open in a nice small piece, and then we get that pith exposed. That soft pith is what holds the nutrients that we're trying to get broken down so that way we can use them next year. And overall, I'd say it is doing a really nice job of sizing up the residue. I really like Marion Calmer, so I would really like to say the head is doing a phenomenal job of turning everything into confetti. However, not everything that goes through the head does turn to confetti. We are seeing quite a few pieces like this. However, you can see all the score marks on the stalk, so it's still breaking it open and exposing it. It's just not chopping all the way through. This part right here didn't quite go through all the way on the end. However, it did split it right in the middle. So we're still getting bacteria in there to be able to break things down. It's just not everything is turning into these tiny little pieces. I'd say probably about half turns into tiny little pieces, and then the other half turns into what I just showed you. And then when it comes to the remaining corn stalk that's sitting here, these Calmer BT choppers absolutely blow these things up. Look at that. Usually it's just cut off right here, and then you have this whole tree trunk left that's just a solid stalk. To this being blown up, it's cracking it all the way down there in the middle. That is exactly what we want to see. I am very pleased with what I'm seeing. When I got up this morning, there was a 0% chance of rain, and now they are talking we could get up to an inch. We ended up getting 15.4 acres done. We do not have the yield monitor and the combine calibrated yet, but we do have a scale on the grain cart, and that says we are yielding about 210 bushels per acre, which we're picking all end rows right now, and end rows usually do the worst out of the whole field by a considerable amount. And then also the corn that we are in is our unhealthiest looking. It's the stuff that has the most falling over in it. So that may be a sign it's the worst. We could get into worse corn. Who knows? We'll find out once we get there. But if this is our worst corn, if 210 bushels is our lowest, I think we'll be doing pretty good. Now, unfortunately, with this rain, it's not just affecting us from a harvest perspective, but it is also keeping me from building more walls. Now, fortunately for me, I have about 10,000 other things that need to be done inside of the house, and it may be too wet to work outside, but we do have some stuff that we need to do inside. Oh boy, based on the dripping sound I'm hearing coming from the underground movie theater, I think, oh yeah. We got some water in here, that is for sure. It is dripping through all of our subflooring above us. As much as I don't like the fact that we have all this water standing on top of this water-resistant plywood, there's not a lot I can do about it. Oh man, look at all that. It's just standing up in here. Woo-wee. Before I forget, the concrete guys did make it earlier this morning. They unfortunately got rained out. They were working out in this big puddly area, but they did get everything ground down and smoothed off before they got rained out, and it looks really good. It's a little hard to see what the grinder guys did because they ended up grinding some of the high, rougher areas down, but right here you can see a pretty distinct line from my finger to the left. They ground going down, where on the right they did not touch, and they basically did this entire process pretty much around every single wall in this area. There was also a pretty big high spot about the size of a piece of plywood over there, which we cannot see right now because it's sitting under about that much water. Next up on my to-do list, I am going to be drilling about 200 holes, or I'm going to be putting a hole underneath every single one of these floor joists all the way around the entire house. About 100 years ago, when the original part of the farm mansion was built, they used a lot of different construction practices than what they use today. One of the major different practices that they use in the basement comes in the form of how they treated wood being next to concrete. Behind me, we have a concrete wall, and at the top of the concrete wall, they have a regular piece of wood just sitting on top of the concrete. Today, we wouldn't do anything like what we're seeing up here. In today's construction, it would be built like this. On top of the concrete, we would have a little piece of plastic foam called a capillary break, which would prevent moisture from being able to pass from the concrete up and into the wood. And then for the wood that is touching the capillary break, we would use some special pressure-treated lumber that is resistant to rot. It's covered with some sort of copper something that basically, when the little bacterial fungal stuff that rots wood gets on it, the copper coating just kills it. So it prevents this wood from rotting. In the existing basement of the house, we don't have any of those things. There is no capillary break between the concrete and the wood. And then this wood is not pressure treated. This is just a regular lumber. You may be asking yourself, well, Cole, how in the world has this house made it over 100 years not having a capillary break and not having pressure treated lumber? Shouldn't that lumber be rotting out sitting on top of that concrete? The answer is no. And that is because it has always been sitting open in a nice heated space down here. So if water ever gets up there, it's able to dry out. So it's not in an environment where rot can happen. Now with what I want to do, which is coming in with closed cell spray foam insulation and covering all this up, that will trap moisture back there, which could potentially give us problems. So that's what I'm going to be working on next. Right here on my steps, I have two identical boxes that are filled with these little sticks that are made of boron. Apparently boron has a bunch of antimicrobial activities to it, or anti-wood rot properties. And so they've used these little sticks of boron in log homes for years, and they just drill them into the wood and they put them in there. And then if the wood starts to get wet, the boron starts to dissolve and it stops the rotting bacteria from forming. So what we are going to do is we are going to drill in every 12 inches all the way around the entire basement, and we are going to install these little sticks of boron in there. So when we come in with closed cell spray foam insulation and we cover everything up, if moisture ever does start to build up inside of that wood, then it will dissolve those little sticks of boron and then it will prevent rot from happening. So next up, I'm going to go grab a drill and I am going to drill about 200 holes. Pulling out of this drill. There we go. That's the last hole. Woo! Standing on the ground again. All right, with that last hole being drilled, I'm gonna call that good progress for the day. I'm gonna go home and go to bed. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.